Hey you guys, it's Amy Gretchen. Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be working on another layout using Ali Edwards' Story by the Month kit. So this is a subscription kit that comes out monthly that goes right along with the story kit and also her story stamp. So if you are interested, go ahead and check out her website. I know it's been sold out and waitlisted, but hopefully they are going through that wait list right now. So if you are interested and it is sold out, definitely get on the wait list so that you can get the products when they are available. So I am loving the Stories by the Month kit, and they're a smaller kit, and let me just crack into it and let you see what's in it. If you remember, I did a video for the kit that came out in January that was February themed, and this is coming out in February and it is March themed, so it has a spring theme. And what you're gonna see with it, and I don't wanna say every single time, but the last few times they've had a stamp set and then some cards, some 3x4s and 4x6 cards, and I'll crack into that in just a minute. And then it also has come with some chipboards. So if you have seen some of Ali's products in the past, what she's doing for these Stories by the Month kit is the monthly digital kits that she did last year that were all digital, she's now making into physical products. So if you remember last year, her March kit, this is actually the March kit, but now it is a physical product. So it has been a lot of fun to be able to play with these. Let me just show you what the cards look like. So you can see that they're definitely full spring colors. And one of the things I really love that she's doing with this kit and also with her story kits is the back side is gonna be blank. And so instead of having two designs on one card and you have to decide which one you wanna use, it's one card each. So you can use all of them, which is really awesome. This is a quote. St. Patrick's. Sorry if it's kind of blurry. Hey, that one says, hey spring, do your thing. Hello spring, and I really am enjoying these colors. Sorry for the things I said when it was winter. I love this one. I'm definitely doing a story about that today. Love this story. And then another quote, nature does not hurry and yet everything is accomplished. It's really cool. One about rain, bloom and grow, March stories. I think this would be a really cool one to then tell like 6 stories in your project life. And then bring on a new season. So those are the cards that are in the kit. And this is what I'm gonna be using to, oh, and I don't know if I showed this up close. This is what I'm gonna be using to tell my story. And mostly what I'm gonna, I'll probably use some of these occasionally for project life, but I'm gonna start with using them in my 6x8 album, and I'll just show that to you right now. Okay, so here is my 6x8 album, and let me just, I'm gonna zoom out just a little bit. And if you saw any of my videos last year, you recognize this. I put this together. This was an album that was gonna be all about me, and it still is, but it's probably gonna have a variety of stories. I'm just gonna, I don't know, just tell a bunch of different stories that pop up when I'm inspired to tell those stories. I guess that's really the best way to say it. So I created this album. If you wanna see how I did this first title page, I believe I have a video and I will have it linked below. So you can see how I did that. And I just have a variety of, you know, stories in here that I kind of put together last year. Some of them are like a full spread and some of them are just totally random. But this is where I'm gonna be using all my Stories by the Month kit. So like I said, I will definitely use these in project life, but I wanna first tell some stories in this album as well. I kind of wanna fill this up. So this was the spread that I did for February. If you remember, I have a video for this one as well. And this is this layout that I did for her story kit change. So this one was with the Stories by the Month kit. And then this one was the Change Story Kit. So you'll probably see both Story Kit and Stories by the Month Kit in here. And just really, I think whenever a story, like whenever I'm inspired to tell a story and it fits in my 6x8, like I want it to be that size, it'll probably just go right in here. So I'm gonna use the back side of this. And I'll move this aside. And I think I pulled out earlier, a page protector that I wanted to use. This one is the 3-Up. Let me see if you can see this a little bit better. It's kind of hard to see, but it's the 3-Up page protector, also from Ali Edwards. And I thought that I would just put together then a full 6x8 spread. This is the photo I'm gonna use now. Like I said, when I went through this kit, when I went through and I was looking and trying to, you know, be inspired, when I saw this card that said, "I'm sorry for the things I said when it was winter," this one jumped out at me, and this became then my story prompt. And the reason for that was, my story is, I've got it here, my story is all about not having sugar in January, and really like what I was thinking by doing this challenge in January, because January is always a hard month and it was frustrating and it was really hard. And so I kind of talk about my experience here, but it goes really well with this because I think I was on the little more frustrated side, or even moments kind of depressed in January. And I attribute a little bit of that to, I would say most of it, not all of it, but most of it, to not having sugar in January. So I thought that that would be a story that you know, it's something that I kind of told in my project life, but it's something that I wanted to jump in and tell a little bit more, just because I want to remind myself that I can do hard things. And I want to remind my kids that we can do hard things, and we can work to improve ourselves and make some changes even when it's hard. So that's a little bit about that story. So I don't anticipate that this is going to be too hard to put together. But yeah, I just wanted to show you the supplies, and then I'm just going to get started and we'll see where this ends up. All right, so I am jumping in and I'm going to move everything aside so I can work on cutting out my type. So you're not able to see it right on screen, but this actually did print out with some crop marks, and those crop marks are able to help me to be able to cut it to a 6x8. Mostly because my journaling is, you can see that I'm going to have a lot of white space at the top and then a lot more white space on the left-hand side. So it's kind of sitting weird on the page. So I couldn't just eyeball it to, you know, kind of be centered. So that's why I used those crop marks. I usually print with crop marks when I just have one journaling on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. But I had my type right justified for this journaling because I wanted to use that black flag chipboard that says, "Here's the story." So if the flag had been going the other way, then I definitely would have had it less justified. So that's why I did it right justified, just because I thought it would go better with that, you know, the flag and that straight edge. So I wanted both straight edges to be together. And I didn't anticipate like all the white space. So I knew that there would be white space at the top, and I really do like that, the space at the top and actually at the left. But it looked a little bit like that flag was floating. And so I wanted to ground it a little bit. So I looked behind me at some of my pattern paper. What I really wanted was like the exact same diagonal stripe in black. And I know that let's see, My Favorite Things actually sells a pad like that. And I think I might buy it just for this very thing, having some borders. But I actually really liked the way this looked. This, as you can see, that piece of paper came from Studio Calico, and it was just the edge of the paper. It wasn't even actually the paper. It was just that edge where they say who the manufacturer is and has information about that pattern paper. So I liked feeling like that flag was sitting on something and not just like floating out into space. And so that's why I feel like I needed that banner. All right, so now I am moving on to the last 3x4 space. So I put that chipboard that says start where you are, but I wanted something behind it. I didn't want it to just be a transparency. So I thought that I would create my own transparency with the stamps, and I pulled over this, it's transparency that you can work with the embossing tool or the heat gun, and you can heat on it and it will not warp. So I will definitely have that product linked below so you can find it. It is a really cool product. I used it in December Daily quite a bit, and it's just so addicting to be able to make your own transparency. So I wanted to do that here with my stamp. So I pulled over the stamp, and I'm going to be using the stamp, the one that says Fresh Start, and it has the lines. And the first thing you want to do, especially when you're using this transparency, is to put down a layer of this powder. This is anti-static powder, and it allows it so you don't have the embossing powder sticking to everything. It's only going to stick to the VersaMark ink that you've laid down. So I've done it before without, and sometimes you can get away with it on cardstock. You absolutely cannot get away with it on this transparency. So pretty early on, I realized that it was going to be really hard to make, like I couldn't really get this stamp to stamp out exactly straight, especially with those lines. And so quickly I learned that this is just going to, I'm doing my best, but it's going to be messy and it's going to be handmade, and I'm totally okay with that. The other thing I learned when doing this is it is a lot harder when the transparency goes from edge to edge, or the stamping went from edge to edge, because I had a hard time knowing how to hold it, which is why I pulled over those tweezers, because I kept touching what I had stamped with my fingers, and it kept smudging off. So the reason why you see me go off the screen and back on the screen is because I'm putting it over my garbage and kind of like knocking off a lot of that powder. So I realized there was powder, because I dipped it in, powder was getting on the back side because I didn't put the anti-static powder tool on the back side. So stuff was sticking on the back side, and I wasn't able to get it off very well because I couldn't really hold the transparency without it smudging. So I just decided this is going to be a little bit messy. It's not going to be perfect. The stamping isn't perfect. There's going to be some white dots where I didn't want them, but I decided that that was going to be okay. And I actually really like it in the end. I like how it ends up working out. So keep that in mind. Maybe you want, if you're going to be doing a product like this where it goes from edge to edge, maybe you want to, definitely use tweezers, but you may want to think about not dipping it in, but instead pouring the powder on top of it. I don't know, that definitely would have helped. But like I said, I actually like the way it turned out. So sometimes it, you know, it goes back to that like a happy accident. So I thought that it worked out really great. So I was really happy about it. So now it's just a matter of taking all these elements and putting it together. So I'm adding that chipboard onto the 6x8, and then I'm going to add the other chipboard onto that 3x4 card. You can kind of see how things aren't even and stuff like that. But like I said, I really liked it. And then I am done with this spread, and it was really quick and easy. I think the hardest thing was really just, or the longest part was probably just doing the journaling. So I really liked the way this turned out. All right, you guys, so I actually had one more story that I wanted to tell with this kit. So I thought, you know, why not lump them both together? I think this spread actually goes together pretty quickly. So the story that I'm telling here in this one is all about my creative space and how it has become a space of learning. So I think sometimes when we're creating, we can be really hard on ourselves, or we want things to be perfect. But I love that, and I definitely was like that. I definitely had that feeling, and I would frustrate myself that it wouldn't be exactly how I wanted it to be. But I've learned over time that my studio space and my place to create is actually a space of learning and not a place that I need to have any judgment, but and also that there's no such things as mistakes, but it's learning opportunities. So that's a little bit about what this spread is about and what my journaling is about. And it was definitely prompted by the photo that I took. So I took this photo one day. I don't even know why, but I just set my camera down outside my studio, and then I set the timer and walked into the frame, kept working, and then that was it. That's how I got that picture. So I do that a lot when I'm taking self-portraits. It's just setting a timer and taking a picture of whatever I'm doing. So I'm really grateful that I thought to do that. And I think that that's probably the hardest part, is actually just remembering or just thinking about getting that picture taken. So that is one of the reasons why I love the 12 of 12 project, because I am thinking about taking pictures all day long. So then I'll end up with pictures like these. All right, you guys, so I've just been chatting and totally blown off any of the things that I'm doing on the video, but I'm hoping that you've been able to follow along. So what I'm creating here is going to be a flip up. So I'm going to have Love This Story, the 3x4 card, on top of my journaling, and you'll able to flip it up. And what I was just looking for through all those chipboards was an arrow. And I didn't realize, I'd forgotten that I had that set that came from Ali Edwards' shop, and I still believe that they're available. So I will link it below, where she has, you know, all the little signs and symbols. And luckily that had some arrows, and I had several different colors. So that was just very serendipitous. So I'm glad that I had that stash on hand. So now I'm attempting to stamp Bloom and Grow onto my photo. And what I wasn't thinking when I did this was how sticky that stamp was and how it actually pulled up some of my photo. You can see that. But because I knew that I was going to be stamping right in that exact place, I didn't worry about it. I didn't think that I needed to like reprint it or anything. I just went ahead and stamped right on top of it, and it's not a big deal. I actually stamped it a couple of times just so it was pretty solid color and pretty solid white. But other than that, you can't really tell that any of the photo actually came up off it. So it was totally fine and worked out in the end. And now I am working on the back of the transparency actually. So I didn't want to put something there. I just didn't want to leave it like open. And so I just cut out, you know, I used the chipboard to create that shape that I could cut out. And I used one of the cards. I think it was one of the cards that was about rain. And I thought I really liked the color blue, and it was a fun pattern. And so I'm just going to stick that onto the back of it. And then I'm taking the other chipboard. This says Celebrate This Day. And that's going to go on the back side. But before I get to that, I'm going to finish my flip up. So I grabbed over some yellow washi tape. I think I grabbed like 2 or 3, like maybe the only yellow. I'm not sure why I wanted to use yellow, but I think it was probably because of that Celebrate This Day. I wanted to have another yellow piece. So I'm just adding it to one card, and then I'm going to adhere it to the back of the other one. And you'll see that I don't actually put washi tape on the top. So a lot of people, when they do this, they will put washi tape on the inside and then on the outside. But I did not want to have washi tape on the outside. I just wanted to be the Love the Story card, because I really like that pattern, didn't want to mess with it. So it actually works out really well, and especially because it's sitting in a pocket, it's not like it's going to rip apart or anything like that. So I'm just going to leave it as is. Now, one of the things that you did not see me do just then, or at least I think it was hard to see, but the chipboard was pretty thick. So both of those chipboards back to back, I thought were pretty thick and did not fit like really well in the sleeve. So what I ended up doing is I ripped off the layers of the cardboard underneath. and then it made it a lot thinner. It still definitely has dimension, but it just made it a lot thinner. So that's why I got rid of the adhesive, and so I just had to add my own adhesive there. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is, I'm going to do the stamping that's going to be on that label. So you saw that I added a label to that 3x4 card, and I accidentally, not thinking about how this is going to flip up and just doing the stamping how I normally do, I didn't realize that once I stamped it and then put it into the tab, that when I flipped it up, the date was going to be upside down. So I should have done it where the date and the stamp were right side up, but I didn't realize that that was going to happen. And I don't know if you see it very well in this video. Maybe in the photos you can, or maybe you can't, but the date is upside down. I just didn't want to fix it. I didn't want to change it, so I'm just leaving it. It's got the date on there. It's totally fine that it's upside down. And what I could have done is just, there's perforations down the middle. I could have just torn them apart and then put them in. In fact, that's probably what I'll end up doing now that I'm thinking about it, because then I don't have to restamp anything. But anyway, you guys, that is it. I am completely finished with this layout and also the one before. So the one takeaway that I would say from this video is to look for story prompts. So let your products help with telling your stories and let them become your story prompts. But also look through your photos and allow those photos to be story prompts as well. So there's definitely a lot of inspiration out there for telling our stories. So I would encourage you this month to look to your photos or look to your products to help you tell those stories. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here. Always appreciate your support and encouragement. We will see you in the next one. Bye.